After I completed Sienna Valley, I completed Sheernobb. The gnome township of Sheernobb is south of the village of Hamlet. So as you make your way south to the elven border of Selene, or through Kron to get to the Greenway Valley, you have to pass through Sheernobb. Sheernobb has its own modules from Living Greyhawk of events that's happening in there. They're having their own problems, which of course the Temple of Elemental Evil is behind and is. So that's all part of the mega epic campaign version of the Temple of Elemental Evil. So no matter where the players go, kind of like an open sandbox campaign, things are happening, and all of it leads eventually to the Temple of Elemental Evil. It takes a great amount of preparation for a Dungeon Master to pull that off. Every DM that did a good job wrote extensive notes just running the module, and he had to change quite a few things. Hi, welcome back to Three Orcs. This is David, and today we're on update number 11. Number 11 on the Verbobonc Campaign 576 Common Year Guide, the website that's freely available for everybody to view and use in their campaign if you want to run the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign in the year 576 Common Year or any other timeline that you want to use in your Greyhawk campaign. I'm using a lot of information, lore, and facts from the Living Greyhawk series, which was written between the year 2000 and 2008 for the timeline of 594 Common Year and up. And all those adventures, those modules, were written in that timeline, and a lot of events have happened since then. But those locations and those NPCs and organizations are still there. They still exist in the world no matter what timeline you run it in. And the idea behind what I'm doing here for the project is to use the lore and the information from those modules to fill out the campaign world around the Temple of Elemental Evil. Just like the Village of Hamlet, the T1 module, how it's keyed, every village, NPC, organization, and leader there is fully keyed in that module. So as a Dungeon Master, especially a new one, it's there for you to use at the table so you can roleplay with the players rather than try to guess or just make things up on the fly. At least you have this information there ready for you to use to run the campaign. And I've done the same thing with all the villages in the area. The entire Viscounty of Verbobonc is being completed. Completed so far is the city of Verbobonc, the complete city with a new map, interactive, engaging map that fully details out all the NPCs and organizations and locations there. Also, there's little tidbits within each article, like little quest or side missions. And I put those in I hid those into the articles as spoilers. So if somebody were to look at the article online, they'll have to actually click on the spoiler button to see the secrets that only the Dungeon Master should know. The next thing I completed was Verbobonc. Verbobonc is 10 miles south along the Long Road in the Viscounty, and that's ready to be used in the campaign. And no matter where your players go in the campaign, these villages are done. They're ready to be used by the Dungeon Master. After that, I completed Penwick, the township of Penwick, which is to the southeast of Verbobonc, about 10 miles. It's the middle of the breadbasket of the Viscounty. A lot of farmlands out there, and all the NPCs there and locations are fully fleshed out. In the first module from Living Greyhawk that I use in my campaign for the Temple of Elemental Evil, the players travel through there on the way to the first dungeon. That's not the Temple of Elemental Evil. You gotta remember, I said this so many times, before they even get to the T1, the Moe House, the players should be at least second level first. That way they have a good chance of defeating Lara at the end of the module, or put up a good fight. After that, I completed the lands of Osbury. In Osbury Meadows, there's Osbury Manor. That fiefdom, that tract of land, that's a House of Osbury, is completely detailed out for you to use because in that first module that I use called Noble Ambitions, the players actually go there for the quest before they hit the first dungeon. Then after that, I moved on south even further. About 30 miles south of the city of Verbobonc, I completed Sienna Valley. Sienna Valley is a bunch of vineyards and farms, and it's a rich community with Fort Emerdy there for the mounted borderers. So that's the most southern part of the Viscounty where the mounted borderers have a strong presence. Because the Viscount, for his own reasons, we don't know yet in the campaign, he pulled back the mounted borderers from patrolling the Cron Hills, protecting the gnomes in the Greenway Valley. huge political tensions going on between the folk of Verbobonc, the humans, and the gnomes. They're threatening to kick them out of the city. The gnomes are threatening to take their trade elsewhere. If you follow my news videos, my news video is 3 orcs interviewing key NPCs in the campaign about the events that are happening in the campaign that's building up the tension, the political tension, which is basically like the Game of Thrones meets Temple of Elemental Evil. Increased suspicion among the people of Verbobonc. Here to provide more insight into these issues is Prince Jim. Prince Jim, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us more about the current situation between the gnome and human communities in Verbobonc?
Thank you, 3 orcs. The tensions have indeed been escalating. Our people have faced increased hostility and unfair treatment.
The agents of the Temple of Elemental Evil are behind all this. They're the ones that are actually pulling strings and making things happen and making people turn against each other. Also, there's some greedy lords on the Council of Lords of Verbobonc that are behind some of this too. And of course, there's a hidden NPCs in the lords or rich merchants that are supporting the Temple of Elemental Evil directly, or EWAs. So that's all part of all this campaign that's being built. It's a work in progress. After I completed Sienna Valley, I completed Sheernobb. The gnome township of Sheernobb is south of the village of Hamlet. So as you make your way south to the elven border of Selene, or the Kron, or through Kron to get to the Greenway Valley, you have to pass through Sheernobb. Sheernobb has its own modules from Living Greyhawk of events that's happening in there. They're having their own problems, which of course the Temple of Elemental Evil is behind and is. So that's all part of the mega epic campaign version of the Temple of Elemental Evil. So no matter where the players go, kind of like an open sandbox campaign, things are happening, and all of it leads eventually to the Temple of Elemental Evil. It takes a great amount of preparation for a Dungeon Master to pull that off. Every DM that did a good job wrote extensive notes just running the module, and he had to change quite a few things. There's a lot of NPCs involved in that module, and they don't all just exist in the module, so in the dungeon, in the temple. Some of them do, but they visit elsewhere too, outside the temple often. So there's a good chance that players would run into one of these NPCs like in Sheernobb or Village of Hamlet or elsewhere in the Viscounty. And it's all part of this political Game of Thrones things that's going on behind the actions of the Temple of Elemental Evil on the rise again, as they're recruiting, bringing in members, bringing in fodder for their undead, for monetary, for supplies, all these things that they're up to build up their forces so they can cause more mayhem in the future. So after Sheernobb is completed, now I'm announcing in this video that I'm currently working on the Village of Hamlet. I'm working with the guys from Greyhawk Rebooted, 576 Common Year, and we're putting our heads together, and we're putting it all together on this website for you to use in your campaign. So you're going to get all the newest maps, all the newest artwork. I can't use anything from Goodman Games because they don't have permission, copyright reasons from WotC for me able to use their artwork, so I'm staying away from that. Either I'm creating my own artwork like I always do, or I'm using the artwork from Greyhawk Rebooted. And his stuff is free too to use. So if you can, not only can you use my website, the articles there online at the game at the table in the campaign, I always recommend that you actually go to the original material too, like the original box, The World of Greyhawk from Gary Gygax, or any other books or supplements over the years, or other Dungeon Master stuff they published on the forums like Cannonfire or Dragon's Foot, or even the Village of Hamlet version he did. Now, he has a PDF version of it that you can use at the table or print up. My website is more along the lines of a reference online, so you can click on all these links in any article and it'll take you to that article. And all the maps are interactive, so you can click on that shop and it'll take you to that shop. And also all the NPCs at that shop are clickable to most of them, not all of them. Click to that NPC article or the organization they belong to or the people they work with. So it's highly referenceable. And I use a lot of bullet points to keep everything brief. So it's very referenceable at the table to use. That way you don't have to read walls of text unformatted to be able to find exactly the information you're looking for. It's good to read the source material originally at first so you can get the feel for it and get all that detail out. But my articles are referenceable with bullet points and brief and to the point to give you exactly what you need when you need it at the table. So let's go ahead and take a look at Sheernobb. Let's go ahead and start at the splash screen of the website for the Verbobonc Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. I'm looking at this, scrolling down at the splash screen, and below the image is a brief description of what the campaign's all about. Below that is a map that you can scroll around of the Viscounty and the surrounding lands. Now, everything on this map is going to be keyed, just like the village of Hamlet is. And I already listed all of the ones I've gotten completed so far. I'm going to continue working on them. If anybody's interested in working with me, collaborating with me on this campaign, this guide, please contact me. Message me down below in the YouTube video, or go ahead and come to my 3 Orcs Discord channel and join the conversation and collaboration of creating these locations. I have a couple of DMs working on some already. I have one guy working on Rhinehurst and another one working on the Divers City. And I also have other people working behind the scenes, like the people from Greyhawk Rebooted and Banesfinger of the original city of Greyhawk. So if you want to get involved with this project, contact me and we can talk about what we can do. And we can start knocking these locations out here. So below that is my links to all the stuff that's 3 Orcs. And on the right is a great introduction video that you can watch. It's only a couple minutes long of what the Greyhawk is all about. And below that on the left is the table of contents. On the right is the whole column of all my interactive maps. So first we're going to go ahead and go to the Verbobonc Atlas, go to the Verbobonc Viscounty, and then we're going to click on Sheernobb. And as you can see on the list here, what I've done already, these have been completed. And I click on Sheernobb, all the locations for that village are separate articles. But instead of so the first article I just want to go to is the main page for Sheernobb. And we're going to go ahead and look at that. Now, Sheernobb has a description of what it looks like when you ride into town. When you arrive to Sheernobb for the first time, there's flavor text. Now, I wrote these articles, as you can tell, with the idea of the newer DM in mind, to help them get a feel not only for the location, but for easy, fast reference to each location and NPC. And every article has its own artwork. And on the right-hand side is an interactive map that you can scroll around of the village. Now, this map, you can only zoom out so far because it's such a small little window. And you can click on any of these numbers that are done. So anything in white is an actual location that's been completed. And anything not in white is just a labeled location that I did not create a location for, an article for. Now, on the bottom right-hand side of that is open full-sized button. A button that says open full size, and it'll open up the whole screen. I'll do that in a minute. But first, let's go ahead and finish looking at this main article. And after the initial description of the village as you ride in, there's a detailed description section of what this location is all about, just like in all my articles. And then below that is the history, which is the history was founded by the Keeleen family. They're also located in Tolver in Greenway Valley. It's a big clan, gnome clan. And basically they shared the realm with the elves. I call them the elves of Greyhawk, and the Keeleen family. And they played a significant role here. The historical events was that the gnomes of Sheernobb took part in the Hateful Wars. I need to make a link there for the Hateful Wars, because I did write that article. And for this website, I didn't write the original article. And then there's another article for the Battle of Emerald Meadows. I put my cursor over it and it'll pop it right up. This is a brief article view of the article. But if you really want to read the whole article, you need to click on it. The giant raids lately, they defended against giant raids originating from the gnarly forests and the Lower Mill Mountains. It's mostly forest gnomes and rock gnomes. They have their own articles too, so that way you can quickly reference what a forest gnome is, what they look like in the history and stuff. So when you're role-playing, it's nice to have this stuff at your fingertips. Then, of course, the rock gnomes has their own thing too. And below that is the community structure, the common people, the merchants, the middle class, what it's like, who they are, teachers and clerks and farmers and shepherds. The religious practices are the entire gnome pantheon. Basically, it's led by Carl Glittergold. And of course, there's a link for him too, so you can quickly reference him and all the other gods as well for the gnomes. And there's a moot here where they all gather. And below the moot is a shrine. A description of what the government and politics here are like. The Viscounty influence here, because they are officially part of the Viscounty of Verbobonc. And the political tensions that are happening. The relationships between the gnomes and Sheernobb and the humans of Verbobonc. It becomes sour. They're disrupting trade and fostering mistrust. The Free Alliance of the Cron Hills, another article, describes their entire organizations of the gnomes in the Greenway Valley and who belongs to it. They accuse the human nobles of attempting annexing and stealing their valuable silver and gem mines. The human nobles complain that the gnomes are liars and cheats and untrustworthy in trade. The merchant caravans from both sides face frequent raids and exacerbating the tensions here. And a lot of that will happen in the modules too from Living Greyhawk. the economy here, what they deal with is gems and jewelry and crafts. And on the right-hand side is a list of all the locations, again, that are clickable to go directly there. Characters and locations so far here is Glendark Keeling. He is the head gnome here, the elder. At the bottom right, I don't know if we'll come here again, so I'll show you now. But this is the DM campaign rumors and reports. This is DMs only, DM eyes only. And it talks about the bandits and the locations affected by the bandit activities, so what's happening, and the economic strains that they're causing, and the rewards from merchants for recovering their stuff. Also, there's quotes here from these different locations that I put in here to use in your role-playing. And there's also detailed reports and rumors. So I include every rumor you can possibly find in all the Living Greyhawk modules. I put them all together, rewrote them, and put them all together here. So that way the DM will have one article to reference for all the bandit activities so far in the campaign. The coat of arms, the symbol on the right, I created myself for Clan Keeling, which is really cool. And below that is from Forged Studios, which I'm a Patreon member of. I use their artwork and maps sometimes. It's an example of a gnome hut. It's a little different looking. And if I scroll back up, this is the Cron Hills that they're in. So they're not only is the village in the Viscounty of Verbobonc, but they're also in the Cron Hills. And of course, I have a whole article about the Cron Hills is. And then we scroll up and then we talk about the defense and military. The defensive structure, what it consists of, which is 1die4 plus 1 gnome scouts. They have a scouting company. They have the Viscount garrison used to be there, but when they pulled back the mounted borderers from patrolling the Cron Hills because of the political stuff that's going on, they also pulled back the garrison that was stationed here. And I believe that was location number 5. So that location is not keyed. The notable figures are Glendark Keeling. He's a long-standing head gnome. And then also there's Meldrid. He's the semi-official diplomat, trader, and ranger for the known village of Sheernobb. Let's go ahead and look at Glendark here. So Glendark has his own article, but I'm going to click on it, and as you can see, I have artwork for everybody. And that's what he looks like. I like his glittering gem-like eyes. And that's the theme I go for in all my gnomes in this campaign lore, is gnomes. Their history was that gnomes are created by gemstones. That's where the gods made them, from the gemstones. And that's what their eyes are. They're gemstones. Anyway, I put in quotes here, things you would normally say. He's a 7th level illusionist, all his stats, his personal passions, his magic, his gem cutting, his community welfare, his governing style. It's all here for you. His history, how his ancestor founded the village a long time ago. And the statue of him is out in the courtyard, by the way. We'll show you that later. You got motivations and his possessions and his spell list. Those political relationships are here, what's going on. And also, I added a list of opinions he has on the bandit raids that are happening lately in the Viscounty. Because a lot of the bandit raids start around south of Sienna Valley, and then it gets heavier all the way through the village of Hamlet. And Sheernobb is only like less than 10 miles away south of the village of Hamlet. So between the range of all that, between here and village of Hamlet, and then between the village of Hamlet and Sienna Valley, that's where a lot of the focus of the bandits are. And of course, you probably know why if you have the T1 module, the moat house. But anyway, he has opinions here. What do you think of it? So obviously, the players will probably ask him some questions. And so I decided to write some stuff out. That's things he might say. On the bottom right-hand side is inside of the Great Hall, the Moot Hall. That's what it looks like. A lot of gemstones and a lot of artwork up on the walls, frescoes. Back to the main article. I'm going to scroll back down to the right. Meldrid, I'm going over the most notable figures here. I'm not going to go over every NPC. This one's important. I made his eyeballs a little different this time. He's a little bit more serious because he's one of the main characters actually in one of the first modules of Living Greyhawk. He comes looking for the adventurers. He finds them in a tavern, and he asks them, he begs them, requests them, please come with me back to Sheernobb. I want you to meet the head gnome. We've got some problems. We know you can help. And he starts off the whole entire 3-part module series for the Sheernobb area. And he's an important character. And the players will most likely meet him in another village, like Village of Hamlet. He'll go looking for them. But all his stats are there. He's a 3rd level rogue. And he's got special qualities, and his equipment is there, his roles and duties, his political relationships, all that's here. He's 49 years old. And also on the bottom right-hand corner is opinions and comments he has about things that are happening. That'll help you role play. He also has a magical item, is his special pouch of herbs, a special blend. If sniffed by pursuing wolf, slows down the pursuit quickly as the wolf is thrown into sneezing fits and yelps. That item came from that module for Living Greyhawk that's happening because he leads the character somewhere. He's a very important character in Sheernobb. There we go. To Sheernobb, scroll down on the right, and the next character we have is Pasmarie Klee. She's really interesting. She is a druid, a gnome druid, and she worships the gnome god Baravin Wild Wanderer. He's the spirit of the wild, god of the forest, nature, and travel. And if you click on it, it'll bring up the full article, what he looks like, and the holy symbol and all that stuff. And created holy symbols for almost all the gods. And she specializes in bees. This article describes what kind of druid she is. So we have a description of what she looks like and her personality, her background, her family legacy. She actually works using the bees to make really her druidic training, her motivations. Her motivations produce the best honey, ensure the well-being of her bees, and support the village. And it details that. Her unique worship, she's a devoted beekeeper and druid of Sheernobb, in a manner that reflects her profound connection with bees and the natural world. She's known as the beekeeper of the wild. She integrates her reverence for Barvan with her dedication to the care and protection of the bees, seeing them as divine messengers and essential creatures within the forest's declining, delicate ecosystem. She has these rituals and practices like the bee blessings, the honey offerings, the forest harmony, things like that. Her siblings are Glennon and Mary Klee. They run the Honey Haven Inn in town, one of the very few above-ground structures that are large enough for a human to enter and actually stay at. And right now, her political relationship with the head gnome himself and other regional leaders like the Druids of the Gnarly Forest. She has a history and the politics of Verbobonc, and she's got opinions and quotes. So basically, So I didn't format her opinions and quotes. They should be bullet pointed, so I need to go fix this after this video is over. But she's got opinions and everything. One of the interesting opinions she has is on the Druids Gathering. There's another Living Greyhawk module in the area, really close by, in the Etters. The Etters are just north of the village of Hamlet, and there's a Druid Gathering there. And there's been a message sent out to all the Druids in the area to come visit by this date, because there's a big ceremony happening. Now, I pulled that idea from the Apocalypse module by Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition. The module has some really good ideas in it, and I thought that was a great idea. If there's any rangers or druids in the group, they'd probably be interested in this. If the players don't go investigate, they don't go investigate. But if they do, we're pretty much ready for that. And I got these rumors scattered, sprinkled everywhere throughout the campaign, in all these different places and different NPCs. They know about it, especially if it's a druid or a ranger, and they'll ask about it. And go, hey, are you going to the gathering? I've heard about it. And they'll give them these rumors of what's happening there. And so if the players do decide to go investigate, it's connected to the Temple of Elemental Evil, one of the cults. You gotta remember, there's 4 cults there, and they all have their own outpost. The Mo House is one outpost, and that's the main inner temple down below, because that's Lareth, and he serves directly with Hendrik. Is that right? And then there's, of course, there's 4 more outposts out there: fire, earth, water, air, and they all have their own outpost. But I'm planting the seeds now in these rumors for these different NPCs throughout the world. On her right-hand side is her stats. She's a 7th level druid. She's a 7th level druid, and her description and personality and background. And her alignment, she's neutral good. And she's species of the gnomes, so I got gnomes linkable, so you can go right to gnomes to find out all about gnomes if you need to. And her beehive location is here too, which is location number 37 on the map, which we'll get to later. And she has these quotes and catchphrases they add. And below that is what she does, how she performs these bee blessings and the honey offerings and the forest harmony. Now, she bottles this stuff. She actually has magical potions, a salve from the honey that she could sell to players, but we'll get to that later when we get to that location. Okay, back to the Sheernobb article. So now we're going to start looking at the map itself and the different locations there. So on the bottom right-hand corner of this interactive map, we're going to click on Open Full Size. And it's going to spawn, it's going to launch the full-size version of it. I'm scrolled out as far as I could, and as you can see, the village is quite sizable for a small village. And in the middle is the moot hall. So the moot, if you put your cursor over any of these icons, it's going to pop up with a little brief description of what it is before you have to click on it, so you don't have to waste time looking for something. So area number 1 is the moot hall, and this is an important place. So we're going to click on it once, and it's going to bring up a short article on the left. It starts off with flavor text, and below that is description in detail in history and the government here, all the things you need to know. And then the last part is the Temple of the Priceless Gem. So let's go ahead and click on the full article, since this is one of the biggest articles here at the village. So the moot hall, what's interesting is over the doors, carved over the doors is a gnome, these words in gnome. So if the players can't read gnome, they're not going to be able to read that unless they ask somebody to interpret it for them. But the interpretation is, if you see it, it's not the right it. That's a pretty funny thing for the gnomes to say. It's used to remind the gnomes that first appearances can often be deceiving and to look deeper for the truth. So this is the biggest building, biggest mound, biggest hill in the village. It's the feasting hall. It's reserved for special village gatherings. Description of the tables and things like that. The front doors. The front doors is the description of the doors going into the temple. So in the front of the big great doors going into the moot hall is an area, it's an open ground area for merchant day. They can set up their stalls, and merchants that travel to Sheernobb set up their stalls and wagons and sell on market day there. The moot hall is the heart and soul of Sheernobb. It binds us together. On the right, I added a picture of the head gnome Glendidark Keeling, 7th level illusionist, and I added a little bit of personal information about him, so that way you don't have to read his whole article again. It'll just kind of remind you while you're here. The description is interesting because it talks about the doors and the hall foyer, the interior design, the history of the place. It's got for ceremonial gatherings and defensive coordinations. A lot of this happens in those modules I was speaking of earlier, where the war council gets together, or they call them moot, and they all get together here to talk about political things. There are enchanted paintings and murals that depict the village history that celebrate the gnome artist here. The government is about their political tensions and the council meetings and conflict resolutions. It's a neutral ground for mediating disputes within the village. Below that is economic impact. The moot hall gathers often to discuss trade, and things have been happening lately, of course, with the bandit problems. Market events and crafts and gem work. And below this place is another set of doors leading to the Temple of the Priceless Gem. Hidden beneath the moot hall is the Temple of the Priceless Gem, maintained by the high priest Eldrin Glitterbrow. Glitterbrow is a high priest that venerates all the gnome pantheon gods, and he has his own article too. But at the bottom is an image of the temple itself, and in the middle there is the gem that this temple is called after. At the Temple of the Priceless Gem beneath us is a testament to enduring faith. Basically, the main focus is this immense, priceless gem imbued with the divine aura of magic, and it's used for communication with other temples and the deities, the gnome pantheon. So a gnome cleric can use his divine powers to communicate with the gnome pantheon or other gnome temples in the area. So this is a great way for the different villages, like the other villages in the Greenway Valley, to communicate, issues. They can report things. You get communication sent to them quickly if it's needed. So that's something important to remember in the campaign. Almost every god in the World of Greyhawk, I created an image of them and their own holy symbol. I created all new artwork for all the gods and the holy symbols for them as well. Because, just because there's holy symbols in the past, they were kind of sketchy, just quick sketches, weren't very detailed, and a lot of them were missing. There's a lot of gods in the Greyhawk pantheon that have no holy symbols at all, or images of what the god looks like. So I created it for every single one of them. If you go check out the table of contents and look at all the gods. So I put it, usually at every temple, I'll put the copy of the holy symbol there in the temple too. So that way the DM will see, yeah, okay, that's the god. And if you click on it, Garl, you can actually go to his article. If you scroll down, the high priest's abbreviated description of him is on the right as well. And of course, if you just click on his article, you can just go directly to him. But we're not going to do that now because it'll take too much time. So let's go ahead and go to another location. Okay, back to the map. We looked at number 1. Number 2 is the Clan Keeling family statue. Now, this is an interesting place because it's centered right in front of the Moot Hall, and it's located in the heart of the gnome village, and it's a celebrated landmark that embodies the rich history and vibrant culture of the gnome community. It's an enchanted statue, and I have a description of what it looks like. So the statue is enchanted with a permanent gnome illusion magic. It brings to life with lifelike mischief whenever there's smiling or dancing nearby. The illusion shows Keelan laughing and dancing, playing the pipes with a grin and a wink. If the players happen to arrive at Sheernobb or in Sheernobb during a celebration or a merchant day, trade day, they'll see the statue come to life, and that'll probably freak them out, and it'll be really cool. And I added to the article the history, the founding of Sheernobb, and what happens here, the community gatherings and things like that. I decided to go to the article, and if you scroll down to the right, there's a picture of the statue right there of the founder of Sheernobb. I tried to make a video of this, but I couldn't do it. It didn't work. So we have an image, that's it. And on the right is a description of the magic, the permanent illusion, the appearance. Scrolling down even further, I wrote a full flavor text description of that statue coming to life. So you can just read this to the players. You don't necessarily have to read it verbatim, but it's fully written out of how the statue comes to life and what it does. So it makes it much more interesting as another thing that happens in the village while the players are there. Back to the map, that was number 1 and 2. I put tents, like for market day, I give you an example of what the tents would look like. And I also put some seating here for any events, like a couple rows of seats where the gnomes would, like grandstands for the gnomes. They're not that big, but they're useful if something like that were to occur. So number 3, on the east side of town, is the Honeyhaven Inn. The Honeyhaven Inn is a renowned establishment located in the heart of Sheernobb, providing warm and welcoming atmosphere for travelers and locals. Before we go into there, you see that I also created the stables. So that way, when the players first arrive to town, if I scroll up, that's Hamlet, the village of Hamlet to the north. So they're coming down this road through the gnarly forest, through the Cron Hills that are heavily forested, right? And they're going to pass the guardhouse. And then their first structure above ground is the guardhouse. And the next structure is number 4, which is the mounted borderer station there. The Viscounts, but they left. The Viscounts men left. And then below that, as they get into the main square where the statue is, they're going to see this big, massive inn with its stables. And it's obvious that's where they're going to have to stay. Because if you look around the village, there really isn't any other outer buildings. All these structures are built into the sides of the hill. There's a couple buildings on the left, on the west end, because you have the mill, and you have the farm, and you have a couple shops that are above ground. Besides these right here, maybe 5 of them, everything else is below ground. They're burrows in the side of a hillside. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Honeyhaven Inn. Now, this starts off with flavor text, but I'm going to go ahead and click on this because this is a really important location. A lot of things happen here. There's a lot of NPCs here. On the right is a picture of the barn and the inn itself, and also a picture of the 2 owners, the Glees, the husband and wife. It starts off with a flavor text, which is quite in-depth of what the place looks like when the players first get there. Very useful. Also, as you walk into the inn, there's a flavor text for what it looks like inside and who's there. And then below that is the official description that's bullet pointed of the furnishings, the atmospheres, the decor, the layout. Notable features, the barkeep, the guest. So it's all there for reference. Below that is the history. The history is referenced too. Things like history can always come up in role-playing, or they might mention it. Below that is political relations, their relationships with the village council and other travelers and merchants. And at the bottom is their relationships with Glennon, Mari Clee, and Quina Powell, the kitchen staff. On the right, if you scroll back up again below the images, Glennon and Mari Clee, they're both gnomes, and they're mead crafters. Their personality, background, and motivation, they craft the best honey mead there is because their honey comes from that druid. And the third character in this establishment is Quina Powell. Now, that's a half-orc, a female half-orc that works in the kitchen. She's the cook. And she has her own personality and background. She was a half-orc with a passion for cooking. She sees her role at Honeyhaven as a sacred duty. She used the freshest ingredients. She acts as a bridge between Sheernobb and travelers, like people from outside, not other gnomes. Character and location here is Gertie. Gertie is a really cool character from a halfling village called Gallows Corner to the south. Let's go ahead and take a look at her. Now on the right is a picture of her. She's a well-traveled halfling bard and visits the village of Sheernobb, bringing the latest songs and stories and political news. This is a perfect character for providing rumors to players, because bards traditionally hanging out at all these taverns know everything. They've heard everything. They got all the rumors, and they have their own opinions of what's going on. And they're a great source of giving information to the players. And she's an excellent NPC for such a thing because she's very unique. She's a 5th level bard. She's a small halfling with fluid grace, a silver hair clip. So she's described here with a great personality. She's very cheerful. She has a knack for reading people, anticipating their needs and their desires, which you would expect from a female halfling bard. Her background, she was born in Gallows Corner. I need to link that. I haven't made Gallows Corner yet. See, this is an example of what I'm doing in this campaign. I'm creating these locations, and then I'll link them to all these other articles so you can go there and what's Gallows Corner? Where's that at? And you can click on it, and it'll take you there to see where she's from. It's basically a small halfling village known for its vibrant community and music. She travels a lot. She has a connection to Sheernobb. She found a welcoming community and a new home for her performance. She's a beloved figure here. She has a reverence for Carolali. She's got her own beliefs and practices for Carolali. She's not a cleric. Now, this is another thing that I should bring up, especially for new players and DMs that don't have a lot of experience running D&D, especially like in the World of Greyhawk. You don't have to be a cleric or a druid to worship a god. In the Middle Ages, everybody worshipped a god. They weren't priests, though. They still did it. Like the Vikings, for example. They would always do a prayer to a god to help them with something. Like they're chopping down a tree or swimming across the lake. Conan did that in his movies. Crom, get me through this battle, But he's not a cleric. But he still worshipped, paid respect to that god for whatever endeavor they're doing. And a lot of those old faiths, they had a lot of gods for different reasons. And in the gnome pantheon, they have like 6 or 7 different gnome gods for different reasons, different faiths, different ideas, ideologies. And so if they're out in the forest, they're going to pay respect to this one forest god. If they're in town making a wealthy trade deal with a merchant, they're going to make a prayer to or a comment about that god, helping them get a better deal. This is just how life is in a fantasy medieval world. And any player, no matter what class you are, even wizards, wizard might say, with the luck of Bacab, I can learn this, So these characters, I provide this kind of role-playing with my NPCs in the campaign world as an example to show my players, provide an example to them to encourage them to do the same thing. That's what I try to do. So this NPC, that's what she's doing. She venerates him, finds it very important, and believes that he protects her. Whenever she prays to him, he protects her and gives her luck. And so basically she's known as the home fellow bard. She uses her music to promote her teachings of the community, trust, and friendship. Then, to add more value to this article is flavor text when she sings and plays her music. So while she's there at the inn and the players are role-playing, ordering their food and drinks, she's going to be playing and entertaining the crowd. So that way the Dungeon Master can just use this in his role-playing. And below that is comments, her beliefs, opinions, what's happening. Like the gatherings of the druids and the edders, the bards, things like that. On the right-hand side, her stats, her equipment. She's chaotic good. Her current location is the Honeyhaven Inn, link. And below that, what a halfling is, link. And below that, she's a Harfoot, link. And then below that, she's 29 years old, female, 3'3". She has a catchphrase. While the home is our sanctuary, Carolali also encourages us to explore and discover. Through travel, we bring new stories and experiences back to enrich our community. Below that is a performance of the Honeyhaven Inn. So I wrote a description of what a hurdy-gurdy is and its magical effects. Then, below that, I did some research and I found a video on YouTube of a really good hurdy-gurdy artist that does a really good job. And I found a song that's kind of close to what this character would play. So I went ahead and linked it into the article. So you can use that if you want as background music while you're role-playing the scene. Back to the main article of Honeyhaven Inn. Scrolling back past all of this, I added some maps of the key for the tavern inn. That's always useful in any big campaign because you never know when it's going to go down. And it usually goes down at a tavern. So it's good to have a map ready to go. On the bottom right, though, is a meal list, of what they could order from the inn. So there's a couple lists here, and also prices for the stay at the inn as well. So that's useful for the Dungeon Master. This list is quite long, so it's useful to use if you need it. It's there to help out the Dungeon Master to get his session role played well. Okay, back to the main map. That's 3. 4 is not keyed. 5 is. It's a Sheernobb guardhouse. It's the security for the gnome village. I have flavor text there to confront the players when they first get to Sheernobb, because the guards will be out there on watch, and they'll be asked why they're there, what the business they have, things like that. Then they'll give them advice of where to stay, like the Honeyhaven Inn. If they want to see the clan leader, Glendadark, they'll tell them who he is and where to find him, which is in the Moot Hall. So that's a role-playing scene when the players first get to the village, which is all set up ready to go in that article. To the west of the Moot Hall is number 6. Number 6 is an outside building, charming and eclectic bookshop located in the heart of the gnome village. It specializes in books, maps, and scrolls. Let's go ahead and click on that because it's a great place with flavor text. Welcome to the bookend. It's a great location with flavor text, so really you can use it to role play well with. It has a lot of stuff happening here, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now the bookend has Grindin. Grindin, his eyes look like that because of the spectacles. They enlarge them. So the small cottage is in fact a shop. There's a sign outside that says welcome to the bookend. And it's got a description of everything you need to know about it. It's got reading nooks, it's got lighting, books and maps, the history, the politics, and opinions of the bandit raid problems. So it's all here for you to roleplay from. On the right is a quote from him. He's a 3rd level illusionist. He's small, even for a gnome, the personality and background. He's a scholar, like a typical wizard. He's meticulous and curious and deeply passionate about books and maps. He's friendly and enjoys engaging with customers, so he'll be fun to roleplay. Grinded maps are the best to be in the region. I wouldn't trust anyone else. And below that is items for sale. So he's got local maps for gold, book copying for 15 gold, and copying a map for 1 gold. He's got opinions on the bandit raids that he can roleplay with. So this is ready to go if players want to go here to buy or sell stuff. Okay, back to the map. That was 6. Right next door, another above ground home cottage is number 7. Now this is Naglo Crystal Divine Shop. Really interesting place, so we have to look at it. Okay, so that's Naglo. The description here is bright baubles, pretty little things abound, dangling from hooks, laid across tables, collected in boxes. Rings, necklaces, half pins, bracelets, armbands, and more seem to be the offerings. Although none of it looks outlandishly expensive, you do spot a few things with gems setting of precious metals in both. So the exterior, interior, crystals. Notable features are scrying crystals, mirrors and looking glasses, and protective charms. The history, he opened it many decades ago, and he has a passion for this stuff. And I got a list of all his relationships with the merchants and the leaders here in the village. He's got his own opinions on the bandit raid problems. He's deeply concerned, deeply troubled by the increasing bandit activity that impact on trade. He's got personal experience. His paranoia is partly fueled by past encounters with bandits, leading him to develop more protective charms and inventive tools. So he's convinced that a demon is after him. His fear stems from the past tampering with scrying, and it has not gone unnoticed by sinister forces. We can all guess who that is. The Cult of Orcus. Naglo's use of scrying devices attracted the attention of the Cult of Orcus. Remember I mentioned before in the video that I think this whole campaign world is the cult? My private version was called the Cults of Greyhawk because basically everything's a cult. All the good gods and organizations are just a bunch of cults, like the Cult of Heronius, right? And there's cults of Uis, there's cults of the evil gods too, like the Temple of Elemental Evil, they're just a cult. Basically, there's just a bunch of cult jerks messing with each other. That's all the Greyhawk is. The gods have everything to do with everything. It's the reason for existence of the world to begin with. The gods created it, and they're behind it all. And so basically, when it comes down to it, gods are the motivating factor of most NPCs in the world. And basically, every god has their own church, their own organization, their own cult. And so I happen to call this one the Cult of Orcus. The Cult of Orcus probably isn't as large as the Cult of Uis or some others, but it's still pretty sizable and very dangerous. So the High Priest of Orcus, upon detecting Naglo's activities, summoned a demon to seek him out. That happens, especially if a good DM, if the players start abusing their powers like that, not being careful with what they're doing at higher levels, things like this happen, or should happen. So the Temple of Elemental Evil, agents of the temple, also became aware of Naglo's scrying attempts. This has added another layer of danger to his precarious situation. So the impact on him is paranoia and fear. He already had a paranoid nature, and this has become even greater with the knowledge of demons hunting him. So he rarely uses his scrying devices despite the importance to his shops. He's scared to death to use them or even touch them. If the players start talking about that stuff, asking him questions. But because he's selling this stuff, and he's going to comment, I don't touch it. Why? I ain't telling you. Okay, so this describes his behavior, the tip off the players. Increased secrecy. He's become more and more secretive and cautious. He often works late at night to avoid detection. He's reluctant to scry. Despite his expertise, he refrains from using his devices, fearing that they might be used to attract the demon closer. He's got protective charms in place. He's got increased secrecy. He's got enhanced charms, more potent protective charms and wards, not just for customers, but also for his own safety. He also has, so that would be a tip-off to the players too. They'll spot these wards. And also there's hiding spots or hidden compartments everywhere, secret rooms in the place. And then further, his political relationship with the head gnome. So while Naglo respects and supports the head gnome Glendark, he also has not shared his secret with him. So the head gnome does not know anything about this yet. The community, the villagers see him as an eccentric but valuable member of the community. They're not aware of the true extent of his fears or the dangers he faces. So this is a good role-playing hook for the campaign. Now, this spoiler is actually something more than I've done so far that related to the Temple of Elemental Evil. I've been sprinkling them in, but I'm kind of holding off on a lot of this stuff until I get a lot more of these villages done, like who the agents are, the Temple of Elemental Evil, and what they're up to. I have entire articles for all of them, and in great detail, all the different organizations they're working with too. I'm holding off on them and the modules to run this campaign with too, but I want to do all those last. This is just a tidbit of what's to come in this campaign. Scrolling back up to the right, below his picture, his appearance, personality background, a quote from him. But below that is a list. Now this list of stuff that he could be selling at a shop. It's up to you as a DM. This is just optional, but these are kind of things that you typically might sell. Besides the junk, the tchotchkes, these things are worth quite a bit of gold, and they're really fun. Number 2 is that hearing helm that I've created a picture for. I could create pictures for all these if I wanted to, but it'd make the article too big. I try to limit these articles to a certain size, so you don't have to do so much scrolling and loading on the screen. But these things are interesting. The Ward of Protection is cool. That's the small amulet, the protective ruins. Once per day, it casts a shield spell. Temporary boost to your defensive durations. The bottom below these items is a map of this shop here. Because with the demon thing going on and players being cautious and curious, you might have a thief in the party. It's good to have a map in these kind of situations. So I made sure to include a map here. That way you can use it in your campaign. Now, that spoiler was a seed. It wasn't the whole quest or side mission. It was the start of one. So the Dungeon Master would want to flush that out more if he decided to run with it, to have a cause and effect and a reward. So if the players do decide to help him out or help him track down, investigate the problem, will lead them to one of the agents of the Temple of Elemental Evil, or probably one of the agents of the Cult of Uis in the area. And I have the Cult of Uis in a dungeon to the south, on the border of Selene, just west of Ostwerk, on the border of Selene, just at the foothills of the Lortmillen Mountains. But that hasn't been made publicly available yet. Okay, back to the full map. I didn't realize I had the map on the smaller screen. Sorry, guys. I went ahead and changed it, so now it's full screen. So you can get a better view of what's going on here. I know the smaller window makes it tougher to see this, what I'm showing you. So let's go ahead and So I decided to go ahead and switch to the full screen here. So that was number 7. Number 8 is a calligraphy shop. It's got an NPC and artwork as well. The calligraphy shop has a full article with a picture of him and everything he sells and trades for, and also information to roleplay with him and rumors and things like that. Number 9 is Peony Mill. It's a pivotal establishment here for grinding grain and providing flour to the community. The description there, what the place looks like inside and out, and the products and services they offer. Basically, it's grain grinding and flour production. The history there, the family, they're the cornerstone of a merchant trade here. They're the cornerstone of supporting the village here. And their politics, their influence in trade and commerce is all described here as well, with the relationships with merchants and neighboring villages, and their staff. The staff is on the right, but on the bottom here is their opinions on the bandit raids. So if the players go there, they can role play with them, and they have opinions of what's been happening in the area. In the top right-hand corner is a picture of the mill, and below that is the family. So you got Smarbas Peon, he's the family head, and his wife below is Lillian, and below that is his siblings. And the oldest one here is Glibin. Glibin is the eldest that serves in the town militia. He'd be on guard duty at the guardhouse at location number 4 in the village. And below that is Nimsy and Poppy, the 2 more characters that actually work here at the mill with their parents. And at the very bottom is a picture of them in their mill together. I didn't make any images of the actual family members, though. Okay, back to the map. Next to number 9 is 10, which is empty, but the pond is number 11. Now, the pond is interesting, besides the flavor text and its political stuff. Let's go ahead and click on the article here, and there's a picture of it. What it looks like there. It's very lush. It's got blue and violet waterfalls pour softly into the timid pond, bejeweled with white and green water lilies. It's a beautiful place. Basically, this is the tranquil and vibrant oasis located near the docks and the windmill. The idyllic pond is a hub of life and relaxation for the villagers, surrounded by tall trees, vibrant water lilies, and the scent of wild mint and sweet clover. The pond is a cherished spot for fishing, leisure, and connecting with nature. So it's a very popular place among the locals here. There's a history here. It's part of the culture of the village and the relationships. But what's interesting at the bottom, though, is another spoiler. So if you're a player, go to another video. I'm going to go ahead and click on spoiler, and I'll show you what's happening here. So there's a creature here. It's a pond fairy. The pond fairy is secretive and gentle. And it has its own abilities and can cause mischief. It's got shape-shifting ability. And I had a group come through here and decided to visit the pond on the little docks there, and they were doing something there because they heard rumors. And the rumors led them here, and the fighter of the group messed with the fairy because the fairy popped its head up, interested in the fighter, and it used its illusions to trick the fighter. So it got beguiled. The fighter was beguiled and charmed into jump into the pond and not play with the fairy. The fairy took advantage of him down at the bottom. He almost drowned. The rest of the players were desperate to pull him back out of the pond before he drowned. So it was a fun side role-playing event. But nobody died and nothing happened. I did give him experience points for it, though. So on the right is a fishing, relaxation, nature, talks about the grass stalks, things like that. The opinions here, the community, and what they think about it. So it's a cool location to show. Okay, back to the map. We got the pond that we just looked at. And that was 11. Now, a lot of these are not keyed. They're just other shops or farms. A lot of them are farms. But we do have number 21 here at the bottom. So this is the apothecary. The apothecary is an interesting place because it's an underground shop to sell and buy herbal apothecary ingredients. And his name is Ginger Dick. Moondihawk. A strange name for a gnome. But what's interesting about him is he's trained in herbalism and potion making. And he's the village herbalist for decades here. And also working with him is his wife, Sheely. Sheely is a cute little gnome there, and she's in her little domicile, her sitting room. And they don't have any kids. Her motivation is helping her husband run the apothecary. What's interesting about this location, though, is at the very bottom is his opinions on the bandits for role-playing. He's got his history and relationships there to role-play with. But on the bottom right-hand corner is possible list of herbs and fungi sold. So I created an article for every herb that I know of for the World of Greyhawk, like adder's tongue, It's a list of herbs that you can find everywhere in the World of Greyhawk. A list that includes the name of the herb, followed by if it's common or uncommon, its value in gold or silver, locations you typically find it in, like a plains or a forest or a cave. And then I followed it up by a description and the effect of that herb, which has become useful if you want to add herbalism into your campaign, which I do. Because it gives druids and rangers something extra in the campaigns, something extra they can do in the world. Besides the spells or abilities, they also have herbalism lore, knowledge. And so when they come across these herbs in the campaign, either by buying it from an apothecary or herbalist or foraging it out in the world, because they can use their skills to do foraging, and they can find some of this stuff randomly, that's great. They can not only even use this stuff, but even use it to sell to make money. Back at these apothecaries, they'll offer them like half price of what they usually go for. Okay, back to the map. That was 21. There's nothing else to the south. This merchant road will continue onwards to Ostwerk, which I have labeled right here. But if you scroll to the left, to the west, I do have a keyed area here called Beehives. Click on that, and let's go ahead and take a look at it, because this is an important location. This is the location for the local druid. Now, Pasmarie's Beehives is the home to Pasmarie the druid. And there's a picture of her maintaining her beehives. This is really cute. So she has her own article, her own NPC article describing her role-playing, her history, her relationships, all that, her stats. But this is an article for the location she lives in, her beehives. And it talks more about the bee protection that protects her and the beehives, and her druidic magic that affects the bees, her opinions on a lot of different things, like the Bandit Rage or the Gathering of Druids, things like that. On the right is her divine honey. Now the honey is called, she sells her honey to the Honey Haven Inn to make mead. And it's very, very high quality honey. It's the kind of honey, if you bought, you know how you buy the best honey you could buy at some specialty store, and it's really good honey? This is even better than that, because this is imbued with magic. It was grown, it was harvested with magic, divine druidic magic. And also, not only does she make the best honey you could possibly ever find, she makes an elixir of the sacred hive. So she usually sells that for 250 gold per jar. And basically, it removes any curse. It heals the heart and soul, providing a sense of peace and rejuvenation. Nature-based curses? I probably should add that there. So it probably wouldn't be effective against other kinds of curses. I'd probably signify that that's nature-based curses. But that's added here for your campaign, which is a lot of fun. Okay, back to the map. That was 21. We're going to circle around to the north here. And it looks like we got number 18 and 20. It's the last two that we haven't seen yet. So 18 is the grocer. That's an underground burrow where they sell foodstuff, so food supplies, staples for the community. You know, you can get travel biscuits there. And they have their own family, an entire family of gnomes, and they work there, and you can communicate, role play with them, learn things. They have their own opinions. And then the last location is 20. This is the head gnome himself. So this is his grand mansion underground, grand burrow mansion. It's very elaborate. It's really nice there. And it talks about his family, pictures and everything. And so it's pretty nice. This location is important because in one of the Living Greyhawk modules, he invites the players to his home to have a private consultation, a private discussion with them about the needs of this village, of what's been happening lately with these giant raids. So this is an important location to have, and that way you can actually run that adventure and have the players go there. That wraps up this update number 11 on Sheernobb, the gnome village to the south of the village of Hamlet. It's a very important location because it's pretty much at the crossroads of a lot of things in the area. And I think it's a good example of what a gnome village should look like and how it feels. And it's a great source of adventure and rumors and things that are happening in the Viscounty. I think it's pivotal to run the Living Greyhawk modules in the area, so that way you can include that with the entire epic version of the Temple of Elemental Evil. So if you like what you've seen so far, I'd like to know what you would do with Sheernobb. Go ahead and post that down below and tell me what you think you would use in the campaign for Temple of Elemental Evil. Would you use it to stage the starter location for the players for the beginning of the campaign? Or do you think it's a great place to have side missions, quests in the campaign that give players other things to do that evolve around the Temple of Elemental Evil, like that Scryer wizard that's being hunted by a demon. If you like what you've seen so far and want to support my work to continue this project, please come to my Patreon at 3 Orcs. Support me on the Patreon. Not only do you get updated on the project progress of this campaign, but you also get some special additional work that I do, like menus that you can print up, things like that for the campaign. So it's a great resource for any of my maps that I make or any special things, artwork that I create for the campaign. Also, if you want to join the conversation and collaborate with us in this campaign, come to the 3 Orcs Discord channel. We talk about this every day, 3 to 4 hours a day. I work on this all day long. We actually talk about the lore of Greyhawk in this campaign, make sure that it works with the Living Greyhawk series. We have a lot of input from other Dungeon Masters on there with their own campaigns in Greyhawk that we collaborate with and work things out. We investigate things that we find that needed to be discussed and worked out as we come across them in the campaign.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It's best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
Thank you for watching, and I hope your players have an epic and wonderful time in your campaign as they have in mine.